grateful that the court ended the case against me, which was a prosecution based on malevolence and incompetence, and a reflection of what the Department of Justice has become under Donald Trump, which is heartbreaking. But I was also inspired by the example of the career people who refused to be part of this travesty. This case mattered to me personally, obviously, but it matters most because a message has to be sent that the President of the United States cannot use the Department of Justice to target his political enemies.
Well, the message was most definitely sent, but I'm not sure that was the one. Joining me now, Bill Jacobson, founder of Legal Insurrection, law professor at Cornell. Bill, the message the base received is that nobody in power is ever going to be held to account ever. Everybody's got the vapors today. It's the end of the world. Now, maybe it is the end of the world. Maybe it's not, but I'm guessing you have a little bit more detail than that. The floor is yours. What happened?
Well, nothing akin to what James Comey just said happened. Okay, this was not a ruling on the merits that he did nothing wrong. This is not a ruling that the president engaged in a vindictive prosecution. None of those things happened. This was an interpretation of a statute by a district court judge, which will, of course, be appealed, which said that the prosecutor who conducted the grand jury and approved the indictment or presented the indictment had not been properly appointed pursuant to a statute for filling vacancies in U.S. attorney offices. And that's how the judge read the statute. I believe the judge is wrong. I don't think it will ultimately hold up if the Department of Justice goes the appellate route. But that's all that happened. Was this prosecutor properly appointed? Judge found no, under a reading of the statute that I think is strained. Has to do with where you're unable, where there is a vacancy in a U.S. attorney's office, the Department of Justice, the president, can appoint an interim U.S. attorney. That was done. That appointment is good for only 120 days, and it then falls to the district court judges, believe it or not, to either continue that person or appoint a new attorney general, not attorney general, U.S. attorney. That was done. That U.S. attorney appointed on an interim basis by the judges resigned. So Trump made another interim appointment. This judge says you can't do that. He says you only get one shot at an interim appointment. That's not what the statute says. That's the way she read the statute, fairly convoluted discussion of that. And I don't think it holds up. And so that's really what this is about, is how are you going to read the statute? Once there was a vacancy, could Trump then make a second interim appointment? That's all this was about. Now, it has huge implications because it gives someone like Comey a platform to opine that he's an innocent victim of the big bad Donald Trump, even though historically it's just the opposite. Trump was the victim of Comey. And now it could go on appeal. It raises another legal question, which is now that the indictment has been dismissed, what they call without prejudice, so it could be brought again. Are they within the statute of limitations for Comey, which at this point has run out? And there's a question whether if you re-indict, it goes back to the original time period. So a whole lot of legal messes. None of it has to do with James Comey being vindicated in any way.
How's all this apply to Letitia James? Because she also apparently got to go off scot-free. She just waddled away.
Same underlying issue, except there's no statute of limitations problem. So there's really nothing to prevent at this point the Department of Justice from re-indicting her, which presumably they will do. And, they have a decision to make. Do they try to go that route, try to re-indict using a different attorney in the U.S. Attorney's Office, or do they simply appeal it to win that victory? And that's just a procedural, strategic decision they will have to make. But Letitia James should be re-indictable. James Comey is re-indictable, but there's a question of how the dismissal of this indictment interacts with the statute of limitations. I think the government's okay there, but you never know, as we just found out.
Okay, let's talk more broadly about judges, because Judge Boasberg comes up all the time. It's becoming pretty obvious, at least to me, that we're not going to be able to get true justice in this country unless we get some of these judges off the bench. But before we get to that, which apparently we're never going to get, can the Supreme Court step in and do something else? Like John Roberts, can he do something?
Well, I think the Supreme Court can step in. I believe they have an inherent power to reassign a case. I don't know if they've ever exercised that, but I think that would be an inherent power that they have. They could remove a judge from a case. I don't think the Supreme Court has the power to remove a judge, federal court judge, from the judiciary, but there are various things they could step in and reassign a case to a different district, to a different judge. So I think there's a number of things, but that's a case-by-case basis. I think the bigger question that you're getting to is we seem to have an out-of-control district court level judiciary, not all of them by any means, but a lot of these, we're in the multiple dozens of cases that the U.S. Supreme Court has had to step in and stay or put a hold on injunctions issued by district court judges. This is really unprecedented. Should be a rare occurrence, but I think we're up to about 30 plus by this point, and that's all they've been doing is temporarily halting what these judges are doing. But you read a lot of these decisions, and they're really political manifestos in many cases. They all seem to start, or many seem to start, with an introduction, which is essentially a stump speech. And then they get to the law. And we've seen that over and over again. And some of them seem to have taken personal umbrage at the fact that litigants, like the U.S. government, oppose what they're doing and appeal what they're doing. And Judge Boasberg is the perfect example. He seems to be on a personal vendetta against the Department of Justice. He is reinvigorating, even though parts of it have already been put on hold by the Supreme Court. He's reinvigorating his attempt to hold the Department of Justice in contempt of court based upon, remember, it seems like a decade ago, but it was only a few months ago, where he ordered them to turn around a plane in mid-flight that had some illegal alien on it they were trying to deport, and he's still trying to hold them in contempt, even though the Supreme Court's put a stop to it, as has the appellate court. He seems to be on a personal mission. This is really a problem. We give life tenure to district court judges to make them independent of the other branches. And that's, generally speaking, a good thing. But it presents a problem when you have a judge who goes rogue and becomes personally invested in winning the case for himself. And that's really what I think we're seeing in Judge Boasberg. But there's no easy way to deal with it. There really is no easy way to deal with it.
Ah, what a pain. Bill, as always, thank you, sir. I appreciate you. Have a happy Thanksgiving. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.